Shalom, my beautiful people, and welcome to my channel, Real Serious Production. And as you should know by now, I go by the name of Miss EYG. And welcome, my ladies, because this video is specifically for my ladies. Gentlemen, you are welcome to, hop in this knowledge as well, but it's typically for the ladies because we know about this topic, right? But welcome to my Women Wisdom series. And in this video, as you see below, we will be discussing the Most High's purification laws. Okay, we will be discussing our menstrual cycle, history that on our menstrual cycle period, uncleanness, whatever you may call it. Okay, and I know some of you are like, well, what the heck? Why is she making the video about this? For two reasons. One, as you all know, in this walk with the Most High, some things I was blessed to have learned and that I didn't have any previous knowledge of. So all praises to the Most High for allowing me to look further and deeper beyond the surface, especially when it comes to this topic, on his laws and the depths of it, and not only his laws and understanding his laws about purification that I was not aware of, some brief history about what, how did tampons and pads come about, or what other sanitary ministrational products that were used prior to today's using. Some things that I didn't know. Like I said, I wasn't aware of these certain things, but all praise to the Most High, that He allowed me to actually look into these things and learn these things. So I thought it'd be great for me to share it with you guys. So maybe you might hear something in this video that you haven't heard before, or maybe you have and you just weren't too sure about it. But again, this is my sharings with you of the things that I found. So of course, I'm always going to encourage all of my viewers to do your own research, to get your own understanding on this research that I had found. Okay. And the second reason that I'm going to share is, if you guys have been watching my channel for a while, first of all, my new viewers, welcome, welcome, welcome. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. To my regulars, if you guys have watched previous videos, I have discussed briefly about, my issue with, before my husband's passing, with being able to conceive, and the issues that I had pretty much, went through. So no, I wasn't able to have children with my husband before his passing, unfortunately, but the Most High knew what He was doing, so I trust Him at all times. But yeah, I wanted to share a little bit more of my story and my history of what I've gone through with my barrenness. And again, this is research that I came upon when I learned of these things. So it kind of ties together because I want to express what I've learned in my walk and in my journey, but also express and share a little bit of my testimony, because maybe there's someone out there who experienced the same thing, and it could be a very frustrating and difficult topic, but I'm always here to share my testimony. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. That's what motivated me to make this video, to maybe inspire someone else who's gone through something similar to what I've experienced, or maybe you can learn from my experience and learn that the Most High has the final say in all things, and we just have to have faith. So my situation and what I've gone through actually kind of motivated me to do more research. And when I was finished doing the research and digging around, that's what I was like, you know what? It's time to make a video on it because somebody out there might need to hear it, right? So, I know that was a long introduction. Usually my introduction's a little bit shorter than that. But without further ado, let's hop right into this knowledge, okay? And make sure you get your Bibles out, ladies. So, as I said before, what kind of motivated me to do this research and also to do this video, if you guys haven't watched a few of my videos, I've mentioned that I was diagnosed in doctor terms shortly after high school with PCOS. Okay, for those of you that don't know what a PCOS is basically when your cysts, there are cysts growing on your ovaries, and it makes it difficult for you to ovulate normally, and makes it extremely difficult and a bit painful at times, but it makes it difficult to be able to conceive, okay? And I was going through this the entire time I was married. And my husband and I, you know, we tried different resources, but the Most High, he didn't allow it to happen. So now I understand why he chose for it not to happen. So I know a part of me will always wish that I did have children, but I understand that the Most High, he would never put too much on us than I can bear. So all praises to the Most High. But after being diagnosed with PCOS in doctor terms, but when I started my walk with the Most High, that's when I realized, you know, I don't have a doctor term. I was chosen to be barren. Okay? In my years. Just like Sarah was barren, just like Rebecca was barren at a time, Rachel was barren at a time, Hannah was barren at a time. All these biblical women were also barren at a point in time, and the Most High allowed me to know that I wasn't alone in this, because, you know, this is something he caused me to understand that this was something that they went through, and it had to be passed down from them to their descendants, right? So and that's actually what I first started researching when I got into this knowledge, was, you know, the stories of all these biblical women that were also experiencing barrenness. And it kind of helped me to have peace within myself, because if you are a woman that have gone through these things, it's very frustrating and very difficult, especially a woman that is married and you would like to have children with your husband, but, you know, you can't. So it was very frustrating for me for a while, and it hurt my heart for a while, especially seeing that my husband had a child from a previous marriage. Not to saying that it was jealousy, but, you know, it was, you know, feelings that were there that I couldn't help at the time. But like I said, after reading the stories of those women and understanding that the Most High chose me to be barren, just like he chose those women of the Bible to be barren for a set of time, so it kind of helped me understand and come to terms with, you know, this is just something that the Most High chose for me, and it's just what it is. He has the final say, and he knows better. So that's what he wants for me. That's what he wants for me, and I'm okay with that. I'm gonna live with it. So yes, after, you know, being diagnosed with PCOS, and not only was I experiencing those emotions and things like that, I experienced a lot of irregularness with my menstrual, and that was very difficult. Especially being a married woman, it was very, very difficult. Sometimes it'll be more frequent than I should. Sorry for the TMI, but I want you guys to really understand where I'm coming from. You know, this is my testimony, and I'm not ashamed of anything, and the Most High has given me this testimony to speak, because, you know, I know it's very difficult when you're going through something like this. It's very difficult to want to speak on it, or it's easy to feel ashamed, but I'm not ashamed of anything that the Most High has given me as a testimony for someone else to be like, you know what, I'm not ashamed either. I've gone through this too. So there's nothing that we should ever be ashamed about. There's nothing that we should ever feel down about. It's just what the Most High chooses for us. So yeah, I've gone through, differences with my menstrual and things like that. And I didn't quite understand, I didn't know, first of all, the Most High's purification laws and what we were supposed to do while we were on our menstrual and things like that. But being new to this truth and being new to understanding, I kind of had to humble myself. First, the Most High, I believe the Most High had led me to research the stories of the barren women that were in the Bible to humble me and convict my spirit of all the emotions that I was feeling. So first he did that. He helped me to read these stories, to understand their stories, to understand that this isn't something that's irregular with me. This has happened since the beginning of time. It happened with Sarah. It happened with Rachel, and Rebecca. And, further along the line, it just helped me understand, like, it's just my time for it to happen to me too. So he drew me to that conclusion so it could humble me and humble and cease all the different emotions that I was feeling at that time, so that he can allow me to understand what I was going through and why was this happening, and just being able to have peace with that, So in the midst of me having peace with it, I started to do things differently. And first I started to, like I said, reading the stories of each woman that was barren in the Bible. And then I started to, once I started reading and researching more, I read into, we're going to get into scriptures about that in a second, about his laws of purification, some things that I needed to correct and things that I wasn't doing that pleased him when it came to the significance and the importance of keeping myself pure in the time of my uncleanness. And that is extremely important, this is another way of putting away of things that are old and drawing near to something new. So I had to put away not only my old feelings of what I was feeling about my barrenness, but I had to put away my old way of thinking and my old way of how I would deal with, this issue of, barrenness, my menstrual, my uncleanness, my period, whatever you wanted to call it. So I had to, read his scriptures and go along and, have it kind of stick with me, okay, what I wasn't doing right and things that I needed to change. So that's just a brief, sorry if I was rambling, but I want you guys to understand that, my testimony is my testimony and I'm not ashamed of it. The Most High has given me this testimony to hopefully it can reach someone else and touch them and help them not to feel alone, because it's easy to feel alone, especially in, such, young age, and you're married and things like that, and you want to have children, but you're unable, or, it's just time is not on your side or whatever. So I want to spend a little bit of time, giving you guys my testimony, because, but now we're going to go into scripture on what actually led me to understand how I was not following the Most High's laws when it came to my time of being unclean or on my period or on my menstrual, and the laws that he said that I had to follow as well, not only with my emotions and things that I was going through, but the way that he said I should be separated and sanctified while I was in the time of my uncleanness or period. Okay, so now we're going to go into scripture now. That's enough of me babbling. We're going to go into scripture now, and we're going to go to Leviticus. Okay, So we're going to start with Leviticus chapter 12. And we are going to start at verse 1. We're going to read the entire chapter, but we're going to start at verse 1. This has a little bit to do with it. Yeah, it does. So I want to read it. Leviticus 12, start at chapter 1. Verse 1, sorry. And the Almighty Yahuwah spake unto Moses. So he's speaking to Moses right now. Saying, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if a woman have conceived seed and bore a man-child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, according to the days of the separation. For her infirmity shall she be unclean. Okay? So this is after woman is given birth, right? And in the verse 3, and in the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. So in the 8th day of having a man-child, we are to circumcise our sons. Not on the first day that he's born, not on the second day, not before you leave the hospital, okay? On the 8th day, the Most High said to circumcise your son, okay? That's one thing that our people are doing incorrectly. Okay, verse 4, and she shall then continue in the blood of her purifying 3 and 30 days. She shall not touch no hollow thing, nor come unto the sanctuary until the days of her purifying be fulfilled. But if she bear a maid child, then she shall be unclean 2 weeks, as in her separation, and she shall continue in the blood of her purifying 66 days. So I'm going to stop right there and say, this is where the hospital and the doctors gets it from when they tell you to refrain from intercourse and things like that for an amount of 6 weeks? A month and a half, or however this is where the doctors gets it from. Okay, they didn't come up with it themselves. They didn't just out of nowhere say, okay, you got to wait this many weeks. No, this is where this is the original where it said, this is basically the Most High is telling you right here, you're unclean until you're done bleeding. You're going to be done bleeding for this many days and this many days, right? And if you break it down, it's going to be a matter of a month, right? So this is why this is where these doctors get it from. They don't come up with this idea themselves, but they came up with it or copied it from the Most High's word, right? Some of them might not know it, but it's not in a doctor's term. It's what the Most High is saying, right? Okay. Verse 6. And when the days of her purifying are fulfilled, for a son or a daughter, she shall bring lamb to the first year of the burnt offering, and a young pigeon and a turtle dove for a sin offering unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation unto the priest. So that was, for sin offering after purification, because the Most High said that after she has a son or a daughter, she is not to come into sanctuary until she is clean, right? So it's an unclean thing when we are on our menstrual, right? We're unclean, okay? It's nothing to be ashamed about. It's not to be grossed out about, but this is the Most High himself saying we are unclean at this period of time because we have this issue of blood running from our bodies, right? Verse 7, who shall offer it up unto the Almighty Yahuwah, make an atonement for her, and she shall be cleansed from the issue of her blood. So if you notice, the Most High is not calling it a menstrual. I'll get to that a little bit later on in the video. He's not calling it a menstrual. He's not calling it a period. He calls it issue of blood, okay? He calls it the issue of blood, or he calls it uncleanness, or time of your purifying. So he doesn't have a specific name for it, but he's describing what it is, right? So I'm going to come back to that in a little bit, okay? This is the law for her that bore a male or female. And if she not be able to bring a lamb, then she should bring 2 turtle doves, 2 pigeons, one for a burnt offering, the other for a sin offering. The priest shall make an atonement for her, and she shall be clean. Okay, so this was then times when we made sacrifices, and the priest would have to make an atonement for, the woman that is unclean, or she sinned, right? But the reason why I read that is because I want you guys to see that this is where the doctors gets it from when he tell you to wait in such and such time to have intercourse, and you're basically free after having a child to do whatever, right? Maternity leave, all this is where it comes from. It comes from the Bible itself in Leviticus. It's nothing that the doctors come up with themselves, but what the Most High Almighty Yah has said. Okay, so that was the reason why I read that. And also to see there that he mentions our menstrual, not as a period, not as a menstrual, but he says an issue of blood, and he calls it uncleanness and the days of purification. Okay, that's what he called our period. So but we're still going to be in Leviticus, and we're going to go to, this is going to be quite a long one. I'm going to try to break it up a little bit. Okay, Leviticus 15. And we are going to go to, actually, I would encourage you guys to read the entire Leviticus 15, but because I have other things I want to bring out, and I don't want to I never like to overlap my videos. So I like to just stay on one topic because I don't want to lose anyone. I don't want you guys like, oh, I'm falling asleep because she's reading so much. So, it says personal uncleanness. That's the title of the entire chapter 15. Okay. So it not only tells you about a woman in her time of uncleanness, but it also tells you about the man in his time of uncleanness. Yes, men have times of uncleanness. No, it may not be blood, but I'll leave that up to you to read the entire chapter 15. But I'm going to stay on the topic for my ladies in our administration only for this video, okay? So we're going to be in Leviticus 15. And we're going to start at verse 19, okay? And if a woman have an issue, and her issue is in her flesh be blood. See, he says again, if a woman has a issue, he never called it a period, she shall be put apart 7 days, and whosoever toucheth her shall be unclean until the even. Okay, so we're going to stop there for a second. So 7 days is typically the amount of days that women are on our periods, right? Typically 7 days. Some could be 10 days. Some can be a little bit more. Some a little less, 5 days, whatever. But typically, roughly, typically 7 days, right? So that is the days that he said she shall be set apart, right? I thought it was ironic because I'm like, wow, that's the typical days that women be on their period for like a week, right? Might be 10 days, might be 5 days for some, 7 days. Who knows? So yeah, it varies for whoever. It's different strokes for different folks, but I thought that was ironic. So he said, whoever touches her shall be unclean. So, but we're going to get into it. Let me keep reading. Verse 20, and everything that she lieth upon in her separation shall be unclean. Everything also she sitteth upon shall be unclean. So this is the Most High saying that everything that she sits on, everything that she laid on is unclean. Why? Because she has this issue of her blood, right? It's nothing that he's trying to make you seem shameful of, but it's just what it is. So when I learned of these things in my walk with the Most High, I learned, okay, well, I'm not only not even considering cleaning behind myself, I'm not even keeping the laws correctly. Like he said, whatever I sit upon is going to be unclean, and wherever I lay is going to be unclean. So that would make it when I first read that, I was like, wow. So everything that I'm, while I'm on my issue, especially me having the PCOS, and mine was a little bit longer sometimes, I was unclean for long periods of time. And I'm like, okay, well, I wasn't really thinking of, I just thought it was just me, but I wasn't really thinking of this being unclean because I'm sitting on it, or that being unclean because I wasn't really thinking that way. Okay? Let's keep going. And whosoever touches her bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the even. So, whosoever, even husbands included, whosoever touches her bed has to wash your clothes, right? You have to think of this he said the days of your purification. He said these are the days of uncleanness. So anything that we are touching, including our beds and sheets, where our husband lie, is unclean. And we have to not only clean ourselves, but clean our sheets, right? And our husbands have to make sure they clean themselves, or they'll be unclean unto the even. Okay? 22. And whosoever touch anything that she sat upon shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the even. So again, if it's like toilet or anything that you're sitting on, it has to be clean, because this purification of blood is unclean, right? It's blood running from our flesh. It's the way, I know my mom used to tell me, it's the way that a woman's body cleanses itself. So we're in a day, like the Most High said, we're in the times of purification. Our bodies are purifying itself. And in order to get purified, it has to get all the nastiness and all the bacteria. That is the stuff that is coming out of us from our privates, right? Everything that's unclean, that's within our system and in our wombs, right? Prepping our wombs for some of us for birth and things like that. Your body is being cleansed by all the, the bacteria or whatever is in there. I'm not sure whatever is in there that's unclean, and I'm not trying to be yucky about it, but it's just something that us women have to go through. So this is the way of our body being clean. This is why the Most High said anything that we sit on, or anything anywhere we lay upon, it's going to be unclean. Why? Because it's all this uncleanness that's in us. We're getting purified of it, and it's running out of us now. So wherever it runs out on, it's going to be unclean, right? Ladies, we didn't have that episode, I'm pretty sure, at least once or twice, where, it's just like, you might have had an accident and overflowed or things like that. And what did we have to do? We have to hurry up and clean that stuff up, because we know that blood is contaminated, and it's contaminated with whatever is where our body is getting cleansed from. Okay, so let's go to where was I? Verse 23. And it shall be on her bed, or anything wherever she sitteth, when he touches it, it shall be unclean unto the even. If any man lie with her at all, and her flowers be upon him, he shall be unclean 7 days, and all the bed therein he lieth shall be unclean. So the Most High is saying here, if a man lie with her, figuratively or, literally, if you lie with her, have sex with this woman while she's bleeding, it's not a good thing. You're going to be unclean. And that's another thing that I had to learn. So the Most High is saying here, it's not acceptable. It is unclean to have intercourse while you're menstruating or while you're on your period. It's an unclean thing, and it should be common sense to anyone that this is something that you shouldn't want any parts of just having icky stuff all over. Like it's I don't want to give you guys a visual, but it's just, it's something that should be common sense to some people, but it's not. It's like, no, you don't want to do this. It's unclean. If a woman have an issue of her blood many days out of a time of her separation, or if it run beyond the time of her separation, all the days of the issue of her uncleanness shall be as the days of her separation. She shall be unclean. So this goes back to me and my testimony, what I was saying when I would flow a little bit over the times that I should. Typically it should be 7 days. Sometimes I would go over 7 days. I'm not going to tell you how many days over, but sometimes I knew it was irregular because I was going through this PCOS thing, so my menstrual was a lot different than other women that I know of, right? So this would have been, for me, this specific scripture was, it convicted my spirit because I knew this was me it was talking about. So I was considered being unclean because I was going over the days of 7 days of bleeding. I was menstruating longer than 7 days. So this scripture in particularly was speaking to me. Maybe it might speak to some of you, maybe not. Okay? And every bed again that she lieth upon, all the days of her issue shall be unto her as the bed of separation. So she's supposed to be separated, right? Because she's unclean. And whatsoever she sitteth shall be unclean unto the even, right? Let's jump down to verse 28. But if she be cleansed of her issue, she shall number to herself 7 days, and after that she shall be clean. Okay, so 7 days, typically the regular time. 29. And on the 8th day she shall take unto her 2 turtle doves, two turtle doves, and bring them to the priest to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And the priest shall offer one of the sin offerings and one for a burnt offering. So again, this is, in the times of sin offering, right? Where nowadays we can't do these things, right? So for a sin offering and for a burnt offering, I would say just to fast. That's what I do. I just fast because we can't do these sacrifices now. We're not allowed to. Okay. 31. Thus shall ye separate the children of Israel from their uncleanness, that they die not in their uncleanness when they defile their tabernacle that is among them. So he's saying of these things to separate yourself from the uncleanness. So if you're doing anything like having intercourse while you're on this ministration, or if the guys are intercoursing with these women on ministration, he's saying here that separate yourself so you do not die of this uncleanness, because these are things that are unclean and we're not supposed to do them. 32. This is the law of him that hath an issue, and of those whose seed goeth from him and is defiled therein. Men and women, right? Women have this issue, men has the seed, right? And of her that is sick of her flowers, and of them that has an issue of the man and of the woman, and of him that lieth with her that is unclean. So these are things that we were supposed to be looking upon and actually making sure and keeping ourselves away from doing these things, because they are unclean, right? The Most High said it's unclean. Don't basically certain things that I learned that I had to refrain and turn away from doing was, I had to make sure, even though I was laying in the bed with my husband, I only had one bed at a time. At that time, I had to make sure I still separated myself from him. At certain instances, I had to make sure, we kept our sheets clean. I made sure that every time I went in the bathroom, I had to clean it myself, because I'm unclean and I don't want him to sit on the toilet or in the tub where my issue was flowing, so I had to make sure that I adjusted these ways that I didn't know previously. I adjusted all of these ways to, not only for myself, but for him as well, because as the Most High said, it is unclean and you're going to be unclean. And I want you guys to pay attention to when he said you have to bathe yourself in water, right? I'm going to get to that in a second, or in a little bit, on when I did more research on the bathing that he said that had to take place so that you can be cleaned, right? So as I said, the Most High never really called it a period. He called it the issue of blood. He called it days of purification. He called it the days of uncleanness, but he never called it a menstrual or a period. Okay, and when I did a little bit of digging and research, I further found out that period, the word period, first, if you look it up, in Hebrew, the meaning is time, season, or era of something, right? It's a time period, right? Which is, which is known, okay? But the word period rooted first in Greek, and it was pronounced peri or perai, or hudos or hadas. Forgive me for my mispronunciation, which meaning pathway or around. And then it later turned into Latin, and it was like puridas, meaning reoccurring cycle, which is what we now translate into English, and it describes our menstrual cycle. So at a period of time, this word, it wasn't period until I forgot what year it was, but you guys, I would encourage you to do your own research. It's just certain key points that I'm trying to keep up with. But period, as you see, was never a word until it was starting to be translated into different languages and the meaning changed. But as you see in the scripture that I just read, the Most High never called it a period. Okay, he'd always called it an issue of blood. Even if you look in the New Testament, where there's a woman that had an issue of blood, he didn't say a woman with a running period, a woman with a, long menstrual. He didn't say any of that. So yeah, the Most High never really called it a period or a menstrual. He just said it's an issue of blood. And, we just typically knew what it meant. Okay? So if we go back, remember when I read, right, it said that in order for a woman to be seen unclean, or a man, if he lied with her, that they have to bathe themselves in a bath, right? So I was a little bit, I wanted to know more, like, was it a certain bath, or was it like something that, it just seemed like it was a little bit more to that. So I start digging deeper, and upon my research, I found that there is a Hebrew, they like to say Jewish, but I'm going to say a Hebrew, because it's ours, a Hebrew practice, which they call a ritual, but I would reframe it from calling it a ritual. So I would say a Hebrew practice of bathing for purification, and it was called a mikveh. And you guys can look this up as well. It's called a mikveh. They use it for different, and it's like a tub of water. They use it for like baptisms in some cases, even in some areas for cleansing. Well, a lot of places for cleansing. That's not what I meant to say. For healing and things like that. But yeah, the mikveh was, in this case, was being used for women that were unclean to be purified or cleaned from their issue of blood. So this is what the Most High could possibly be speaking about when he said that you have to bathe, right, and be set apart into a tub before you can be considered clean or of your issue. Okay? And as I said, they pretty much used the mikveh for like other things as well. But for the same topic that is at hand, they used it for purification for women that were on their menstrual cycles. So that's what I found when I looked into that. And I'm not exactly sure if there was, as I read in the scripture, there wasn't specifically what the Most High didn't specifically say the bath or what kind of bath it was. So again, I would encourage you guys to do your own research on these things as well. Maybe you can come into another understanding that I didn't get to yet. But just always look things up for yourselves and dig deeper for your own understanding. It was just something that came about for me. Okay. Now, the next thing that we're going to speak about are early menstrual products, so early what we call it, sanitizing products. Now, my curiosity got the best of me because I used to always ask myself, I used to always wonder, like, wow, okay, did women in the, way before our time, how did they used to deal with their periods, or had they always used pads, tampons, and things like that? I was so very curious. So my curiosity got the best of me, especially when doing the research for this video. I really just started digging deep. The Most High, all praises to the Most High. He was just guiding me to all these things some things of course I know of certain of them, but certain things I wasn't really aware of. So all praises to the Most High that I know it could only have been Him that was leading me and guiding me into these understandings, and to be known of these things that I never knew, or I never learned. So the first thing that we're going to speak about is there was a such thing called a menstrual belt or a sanitary belt. Okay, and what it is, I wish I can show you a picture. But you guys I'm going to leave that up to you because I was so curious, and I was looking at it. I was like, what? They wore that? That thing looks incredibly uncomfortable. But that's why I didn't stay around long, because they were uncomfortable. So yeah, it's they came about in the 19th century. So what it is a belt that goes around your waist, but as it comes to the woman's, private area, it has a pad there that would that's why the belt was holding the pad in place. And I was like, whoa, it looks uncomfortable. It came about in the 19th century, or they called it the Holster sanitary belt is another name that they called it. Yeah, it's a belt that's used to hold your pad in place, but it was originally invented for the wealthier women, the women that were in power and had a lot of money, and it was made for them. So yeah, this belt was first invented for the wealthier women, women with power and money. It was made for them. The women beforehand, while the wealthy women wore these belts, the other women just still relied on like rags and cloths and household items to pretty much just handle it. That's how they handled their menstrual. I found. So I've never heard of this thing. My mother never told me about it. My grandmother definitely never told me about it. So it was quite surprising to me, especially when I saw the picture of this thing. So if you guys take your time and do your own research and go look at the pictures of these things, they're quite fascinating. I know I was fascinated because I've never seen it before. So it was very interesting. It's very interesting to on these these products that I never even heard of. Of course I wouldn't, because I'm young, but yeah, it's just very fascinating. So ladies, if you have the time, please go look at these pictures. It will very much be entertaining not entertaining, but it will be interesting for you. Okay. Yeah, and so they were used even though they were uncomfortable, and even though other women started wearing them other than wealthy women, they actually lasted pretty long. They stopped being used, I think, until the 70s, the 60s or the 70s. So they were pretty, in style, regardless of how uncomfortable they were, for quite some time, for quite a while. So, yeah, that was again, it's called the Holster sanitary belt, or a menstrual belt, or just a sanitary belt. But once you type those in, you'll see the pictures, and it was quite fascinating. So the next sanitary item that we will speak on is another item that I never knew of it. My mother never told me about it, and my grandmother definitely, neither one of them ever mentioned to me about this, and I was like, what? I've never heard of that. So all praises to the Most High, because I never knew this. It's called a menstrual cup. Some of you might have heard of it. I've never heard of it. And it blew my mind because I was like, they're putting a cup where? I don't think so. But it's not as painful as it sounds. Because when it first came to me, I was like, a menstrual cup? Yeah, okay. I'm not putting a cup up there. I don't even like wearing tampons. So how am I going to put a cup up there, you know? So, but it's a menstrual cup. It's like rubbery-ish kind of cup. They didn't start out rubbery. They were made of, I forgot, some other kind of material that made it extremely uncomfortable for women, and they took it off the market. But they reinvented it and made it a little bit more comfortable. So some women are still wearing them now today. It's like a little cup. Like I said, my mother and my grandmother never told me about it. So it's basically it's like about this size cup. It's a little rubbery. If you guys please do your research and look at these pictures, because I wish I had pictures right now. I'm so sorry. But I'm going to leave it up to you guys to do your research about this. It's pretty fascinating. Once you do that, comment below and tell me what you think about it. But it's like a little cup that's about this size, and you have to insert it just like a tampon, but you have to insert it, and then you have to make sure that you have to fold it on at least one side because it's rubbery. So you have to fold it just to get it up there, and then once you get it up there, you have to kind of put your finger and make sure that it's opened so it can be able to catch the leakage. Other than that, it's going to leak out, and it's going to be like, defeats the purpose. So it sounds like it's uncomfortable, but when I did my research, I actually watched the videos of women that actually used it, and surprisingly, some actually like it. Yes, it would be quite an adjustment because it's something, especially if you have never done it before. Women was like, they had to get used to it. It's just one of those things that you would, if you're new to using it, you would have to get used to it. And a couple of women said that, they didn't like it at first, but after, doing it, it helped them to, get used to it after a while. So after inserting it, they last longer. They last, I believe pretty much all day. It's like to 8 to 10 hours. You put the cup up there. You don't have to touch it until 8 to 10 hours. Take it out, and then you clean it. I would, rinse it out and then boil it, so you can get that extra bacteria out of there or that extra stuff that you don't need. And then you put it back up there for another 8 to 10 hours. So it can save you a lot of money. I know women, we spend a ton of money on, tampons and pads, right? But getting this cup would save a ton of money. Because women still use it today, surprisingly. Once you get used to it, and it doesn't feel so bad. I have never used it, but I said I would give it a try. Now that I know about it, I'm so curious to see how it is. So I do plan on using it. Or giving it a try. I don't know how that will work out for me or how long I will be using it, but I do want to give it a try since I was so fascinated and how it looked and how the whole story behind it and things like that, because like I said, I never knew about it. My mother, I don't even know if my mother knows about it or heard of it. But I'm going to ask her. And my grandmother, I didn't get a chance to, ask her about that sort of thing, but she never mentioned it to me. She mentioned all the other stuff, but she never mentioned the cup. So I didn't get a chance to know if my grandmother even knew about the cup. But I'm pretty sure she heard of it because, she's my grandmother, and that's around that time that, all this stuff was, came about and made. But yeah, it's a small cup. It's a little rubbery, and you have to insert it like a tampon. You just have to fold it. And like I said, I would encourage you guys to do your own research and see if you like, does it fascinate you, or did you? Some people might have already heard about it. Like I said, I haven't heard about it until I did the research on these early times and what women used in these early times for their menstrual cycle. Like I was so curious. So all praises to the Most High. It's been pretty popular, and it's still pretty popular. As I said, I've looked on Amazon. Like, yes, my curiosity has gotten the best of me. So I looked on Amazon, and there are actually some on Amazon. All you have to do is type in menstrual cup, and you'll see a whole lot of them pop up. Some of them are organic, some of them are big. For some of them are small. Some of them are colorful, some are clear. It's a whole bunch of them. I never knew. Who knew? Who knew? But yeah, like I said, just it might be a little bit discomfort, especially if you're first starting out for doing it. But the women that I did research on, they said after, they got past that discomfort for the first few times, they got used to it. So I was like, okay, well, I'll give it a try one day. So we'll see. But yeah, it could save you on the cost of tampons and pads and so much. But if you guys don't want to do it, or you don't like sticking, myself, I said I would give it a try, but I never was the type to actually I don't even like tampons, so I'm not sure how I would like the cup. And then a lot of women would say, well, how could you use a cup? It might overflow, and it was quite a few women that said, I'm going to leave it for you guys. I don't want to give you any visuals or, too much TMI. But we're ladies. This is what we have to deal with all our lives, right? But the women that I watched certain videos and did certain research, and they said, well, it's not as much as you may think. Like, we think we may bleed a lot. Some of might. But, it's not too much that a cup couldn't catch. So I'll try to leave the link below on those videos if you guys are curious about what those women had to say about it, or if you just want to see someone else's perspective about it. Okay, and the last topic, not last topic, but the last of this topic, are the tampons and the pads. Okay, we have been wearing them since we were preteens, right? We know how to use them. We know where to get them, because this is our area, okay? But what I wasn't aware of, which caused me to seek into the more information about them, was how did they come about? It's a lot, but I wanted to keep this video a little bit brief for my ladies. I didn't want to overpack it. Comment below if you want me to make a part 2 of it. I definitely will. But I just want to keep this video very brief. But yes, pads and tampons came onto the scene first after World War II. Okay? And they're made out of these things called silicotton. And silicotton is, after the wars, they used them for wars for, like gauges, or to help clean up wounds and things like that. But once the wars were over, they had a lot of these gauges and silicotton just left over. They had them left over all over the place, right? Because there was no more war. So that's when the cotton they first start creating pads. Well, this is where Kotex came from. Kotex came about in the 1920s, all the way, I think they had to redo in the 1930s and then the 40s, right? But the Kotex pads came about in the 1920s, okay? Not sure exactly what year, but I know it was in the 1920s, the early 1920s, like 21 or 22, I believe. And they had all these leftover pads, and that's when Kotex first created them and then created tampons, even though tampons really wasn't that, just like the menstrual cup, tampons were not that popular as well because they were discomfort, right? And tampons got a weird start as well. They used to, this cotton, they would wrap it around some type of wood or something. It was just, it was so horrible. I was like, ew. I don't like tampons now, and I definitely wouldn't like them then, because the way they used to be then was like horrific. I'm like, no ma'am, no thank you. I'll make my own little rag. That's what that. So those are just a few things that I found on these topics. Yes, we know how to work pads, tampons. Some of us like them, some of us don't. I've found that, especially in this truth, a lot of other women have been going back to just not using the cotton or store-bought pads. A lot of women are going back to using, their own rags or their own personal. I know someone who makes pads. They're reusable as well. So if they look pretty fancy as well too. So I know someone who makes them, and they make them their own, and they're reusable. So they look pretty nice. They look comfortable. I haven't worn them yet, but I plan to. So, once you finish with one, you wash it and you get another one. But, I said I would go that route as well. So kind of can save more money because we don't know what's in these pads and tampons. I've done research on that, and I'm not quite done with it yet. So as I said, I would do a part 2 because I don't want to speak on something that I haven't fully researched on about the chemicals and the different things that are found in our tampons and in our pads that we buy from these stores. So I will do a part 2 when I do more research on that. I don't want to bring out anything right now because, as I said, I'm not going to mislead or give you misinformation if I'm not fully done doing that research. Okay? But yeah, that's it for those topics. But that is in conclusion. That is all for this video. As I said, I know I kind of babbled a little bit, but these are a few things that I found. I found a few more, but as I said, I'm going to do a part 2 to this video to further explain. I don't want people to fall asleep and be like, oh my goodness. I would rather give you the things that I research and give you motivation so that you can research these things on your own. I'm sorry I don't have any pictures to show or any videos to show clips from. But you guys can always, research these things on your own, ladies, and it's so worth it, especially when you are like me and you have not found, you haven't heard of these certain things. I know I haven't heard of the menstrual cup or the menstrual belt. Took me by surprise because I've never heard of it. I'm going to actually ask my mom right now, has she heard of any of these? Because she never mentioned it to me. But yeah, I'm sorry if it's a brief. I wanted this video informative, but briefly informative. So again, I'm always going to encourage my viewers to do your own research. Seek this information out. And if your curiosity gets the best of you, let it get the best of you, okay? Because it's good that we should know these things. Also, as I said, be encouraged to look into these products and, because I've done some research, and what led me into going further into seeing what did the ancient women use in their time of their menstruals was because I was hearing that it's a lot of toxic and a lot of unhealthy things that are in our women products today. So I, upon that those findings, I was like, well, what the heck did women used to use back in the day when it came to, how did they handle their period? So Again, guys, do your own research. Seek out your own knowledge and your own understanding. Ask the Most High Yah to lead you in all understanding. And He is leading me into wonderful understandings that I never do. All praises to Almighty Yahuwah. Thank you. All praises to the Most High for His truth and for His Spirit. His Spirit of truth that has been guiding me and leading me into things that I've never known. And these things are a few of them. Yes, I'm promoting my earrings. I usually don't promote my products, but because I have this channel strictly for the Most High. But if you guys would like to purchase these earrings or any of my other earrings, I make earrings and make t-shirts, design t-shirts. So if you guys want to comment below, if you want to see, or I can give you my Facebook business page. I do have a website, but it's in construction right now. It's down right now, but that's the only reason why I'm, promoting. So yeah, if you guys want to, interested or seeing some more of my lovely products, make sure to comment below. Okay. Thank you guys so much once again for bearing with me. I hope I didn't ramble, and I hope I got you guys understanding. I hope I actually motivated you guys to do your own research on these things, and maybe someone else didn't know these things, because I definitely didn't know. But yeah, seek this information out. Look at those pictures; they will blow your mind. Okay, get these images. Yeah, they're quite fascinating. Like I'm still shocked. I was like, whoa. But thank you guys so much. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you have not subscribed. I love you, my beautiful people. Mwah. Stay blessed.